I don't know if you agree with this, John, but one of the problems of getting advice when you're starting a business is that not all advice is good advice, and secondly, you can get too much. So if you're in a university, you know, there are lots of business advisors and there are lots of people who do this and that. By all means, listen to those guys, and they're often a great source of information about grant funding and local contacts. But when it comes to the specifics of your business, try to talk to somebody who has experience in that sector. Okay, so if you're, as I was doing, you know, if you're starting a business in the advertising and communication sector, really you need to talk to somebody who is in that sector. Don't assume that people won't talk to you because they see you as a competitor, because that's not the case. There's an awful lot of sort of comradeship in business.
There is, and I think, you know, there's an old expression, people like helping people.
They do.
You know, it's you can almost go to sometimes a competitor and say, how did you start?
Yes,
Where did you get your breaks from? And the insight that you can get from friends, from not necessarily full competitors, but from companies who aren't going to buy your product. How did you start? What gave you the answer? Because yes, you'll have plenty of lawyers there to help you, you'll have plenty of accountants there to help you. Their cost bases, you've got to pay for them. The truth is, selling is a very individualistic kind of business. You've got to be clear in your own mind, but don't be afraid to ask anybody out there, how did you get your first break? And you know, can I use your contact? Can I use your name as a reference to get to a next meeting? Because it's all about people. Winning business, sales, it's all about people.
All about people. On the subject of lawyers and accountants, be careful. They can be a good source of advice, but they tend to be quite cautious and conservative, especially accountants. Okay, so often, you know, often they've started their own business, but try to get advice from people who are a bit more entrepreneurial. Not that, you know, a lot of accountants are, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
They tend to be a bit cautious sometimes.
They can be cautious, and they will charge you.
They will charge
when
you.
you're starting up a business, money's tight. You know, sometimes you have a little a war fund or a war chest, but actually, very rarely do you need what I call big boy accountancy advice at the start of a small business. When you're getting a little bit more mature, you can do it. You can use friends of friends, and you know, mates rates and all the rest of it. So do that. But you know, you don't need a big London law firm to set up a service-based organisation with 2 to 3 people. You don't need it. Later on, when you're getting a bit more established, you'll need some contractual frameworks, professional service agreements, whatever, or supplier agreements. Ring Bill, ring me. There's an awful lot there out there that you can get this stuff
I'll give
from.
you our phone numbers.
Yeah, we'll give you the numbers. It's out there, and there is actually a couple of good websites which I can recommend later. I'll send details to you, where you can actually get pre-formed confidentiality agreements. You can get pre-formed
employment contracts. Health and safety
you don't have to deliver it from scratch. So there's an awful lot out there, and it's very reasonably priced. And we can make those details available to you.
Yeah, absolutely. One more thing on advice. Obviously, you'll be surrounded by people who are wanting to support you or give you support. A very common problem for people starting business is anxiety among their kind of nearest and dearest. Often the people who are most hostile to the idea of you starting a business are family, friends, those kind of people. So, you know, when I started up on my own, my mum and dad, for example, were like, oh, you know, because came from a very traditional family background. Mum and dad both factory workers. Oh, you know, you want a wage at the end of the week, son. You don't want to. Oh, where would you? And even today, so I've been running my business now for a decade. Even today, if I speak to my mum, she's like, "Are you getting your money in all right?" And you know, I'm earning. I'm not a millionaire, but I'm earning more than she ever earned, you know, at any point during her working life. But there's still that anxiety. So one of the things you often have to push through is the opposition, and in fact downright hostility sometimes, of people who actually should have a bit of faith in you. And usually what it is, it's anxiety, people worrying on your behalf, or if they're your dependents, people who are worried on their own behalf as well, quite reasonably. So yeah, you have to deal with that, don't you?
You do, and I think also beware the people who give you, if you like, give you a false sense of security and say you're doing really well, you're doing well. Actually, you know, it's down to you, your partner, your business partner that is, or whoever the team is. And again, there's a point here, Bill, I think we talked about it earlier. Choose your partners carefully. It's all very well going out by yourself. I personally, I went in with 3 guys. Well, I went in with 2 guys initially, then I got 3, then we got 4, then we got 15 people. I'm now in a very small consultancy with 3 of us. We run it centrally. I've gone from a bigger to a smaller. Choose your business partners carefully, because you're going to be in it, you know, it's a bit like marriage, you know, you get the 7-year itch, you get the 14-year itch, and you get sometimes a 3-year itch, and you've got to be very careful, and actually having aligned objectives, having having open communications with your business partners. You don't always have to agree with them, but the trick is you do have to be open and transparent with them in your dealings.
And it's sometimes worth being just a bit careful about, for example, going into business with friends, because if things go wrong, it can ruin a friendship. You know, arguments over money and who's doing what and so can be a big problem. One thing I will say, and an objection that's often raised when you say, oh, I'm going to go into business, or when you tell people that you work for yourself, they say, how do you cope with the insecurity of being self-employed? And I say, how do you cope with the insecurity of having a job? Okay, because I mean, the great advantage of being self-employed, and you'll meet lots of self-employed people will say, I would never go back to having a job. And I'm certainly in that camp. But the great advantage, no one's going to make you redundant. Okay, you're not going to walk into your desk the next morning and find a redundancy notice on it. You might lose clients, you might lose several clients, but it's very unusual that you'll lose all of your clients or all of your customers, and you just have to go out and find new ones. So I think, especially today and the way the world and the economy works, I feel much more secure in my self-employment than I think a lot of my friends and colleagues are in employment.
I'll second that, Bill. I like the control, frankly. You know, it's
control freak.
Well, not so much control freak, but I like to be more in control. I mean, when you're an employee of a 20,000 employee company, you know, you are an employee. You know, it's very clear. You may be a shareholder, you may be a director, but even as a director or a board member of a 20,000 man company, it doesn't give you the control. Whereas, you know, when I wake up every morning, I get out of bed and say, I know what I'm going to do today. I know where I'm going to go. I know what I've got to do. I know what I've got to deliver. The issue is, it's on me. If I don't get up in the morning, I can also choose that, and I don't get paid. So, you know, the Lord gives, the Lord takes. The issue is, you are more in control. You go and talk to a taxi driver. Most taxi drivers, wherever they are, hackney cab drivers in London, they love it for the control. And be very clear why you're going to business. You can't run away from it, but be very clear, why are you doing it? Is it for money? Is it for approbation? Is it for peer review? There's lots of reasons why we all do our business, but you know, be very clear why you're doing it, and for also how long you want to do it, because getting into business is quite easy. Getting out is quite hard.
Absolutely, yeah, and it can be difficult to get out. So it seems a funny thing to say, but have an exit strategy when you start your business, even if it doesn't actually come to fruition and things actually change. Because I mean, that's a point we made earlier. You know, business never goes quite the way you expect it to in your business plan, but have an idea of how one day you might get out.
Yeah, and that might be selling the business, it might be merging with a business, it might be, I don't know, there's all sorts of ways of getting out of business, but you know, there is, you know, the old expression is getting up a mountain's one thing. Most accidents happen on the way down, and I think exit is where you've got to think about it.